It's just a 4-game slate for today, but that does not mean there is nothing to discuss for tonight in MLB DFS because we have Clayton Kershaw, we got Mike Clevenger making his Padres debut tonight, and plenty of other stuff to discuss. So let's dive on in and get set for tonight's 4-game MLB DFS main slate. This is the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here for the next 25 minutes to answer your questions about tonight's MLB DFS slate. No matter where you are watching this stream, you can get those questions in. We'll be answering them from YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. No matter where you are watching, we'll get your questions here on the air to get you set for tonight. We'll talk pitchers, we can talk stacks, one-offs, values, whatever is on your mind, process on a 4-game slate, because why not? Feel free to ask them wherever you are watching this. Also, while you are watching, make sure you are subscribed, whether it's the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook pages. Follow us, subscribe, and make sure you get push notifications as we go live each and every day. At least on the YouTube page, it is not just these live streams that we have in the afternoon. We are also streaming the solo shot there at 9 a.m. Eastern every weekday to get you set for that day's MLB DFS slate. If you want the information a bit earlier, you can do so via that. It will go up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed shortly thereafter. We have our PGA podcast streaming live here on the FanDuel YouTube page. We will also have our NFL podcast beginning next week. Week 1 preview is Thursday at 10 a.m. That'll be live on the YouTube page as well. And of course, everything also on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. The FanDuel Hurry Up goes up on the YouTube page. We have covering the spread there as well, getting you set for the Kentucky Derby. So no matter what kind of content you want to consume, just make sure you are subscribed to the FanDuel YouTube page. All right, let's dive in here to this 4-game MLB DFS slate. And as discussed this morning on the solo shot, to me, I think this is a great slate to go single entry. And the main reason why I would like to go single entry for tonight is because there aren't a whole lot of options that I really want to use. I think that Clayton Kershaw is a no-brainer at the top of the pitching pool as the best pitcher for tonight. Let's take a look at Kershaw here and explain why that is the case. Kershaw, the velocity has been up so far this year, and what's encouraging is that he has sustained that increased velocity as he has gotten further into the season. A 2.92 skill interactive ERA for Kershaw this year, 30% strikeout rate, 4% walk rate. All three of those numbers are the best on the slate for each starting pitcher's most relevant sample. Has led us some hard contact, but as you can see here, Diamondbacks aren't providing a whole lot of that, especially against lefties. Just a 61 WRC plus for them. 34% fly ball rate. They don't walk a whole lot. So what you get with Clayton Kershaw is you get a massive floor because he is at home facing a pretty bad offense. But you also get a good ceiling because Clayton Kershaw is pitching really well this year. 29.5% strikeout rate, 2.92 skill interactive ERA. He had a 10 strikeout game earlier this year. So honestly, Kershaw just checks every box for me, and I would say he is the number one guy you want to lock in. So that's the context through which I am viewing this slate for today. Let's get some questions over on YouTube. This one from Mateo. I like the Padres and Toronto bats. What do you think? I love the Toronto bats. They are my number one stack for today, so fully on board with that. I am less interested in the Padres. The Padres are awesome, and I've gotten burned by the Padres plenty of times this year. However, they're a pretty lefty-heavy lineup, and they're facing Andrew Heaney. Heaney does not have massive platoon splits. Like, if you look at left-handed batters against him, they do pretty well, but again, it's kind of a selection bias thing because for a lefty versus a lefty, usually when a left-handed pitcher is facing a left-handed hitter, they tend to be the team's better hitters, and those are the guys who are in there. So you're seeing them against really good lefties, and that's going to skew the sample a bit for sure. So when I see Heaney having numbers that are just kind of okay against lefties, it doesn't really say to me that he can't control left-handed batters. It says to me that we see a lot of good lefties facing him, and this Padres lineup is not out yet, but you think about the guys who are there outside of Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado, a lot of those guys are left-handed. They also just lost Will Myers. He went on the injured list yesterday, so you got Trent Grisham, you got Eric Hosmer, Mitch Moreland, Jake Cronenworth. Those are really good hitters, and they're going to be at least partially neutralized today because Andrew Heaney is a lefty. I'm actually considering Andrew Heaney as a pitcher for tonight more so than stacking against him. So I do like the Blue Jays a lot, not as in on the Padres here. Question from Periscope from Dave. Is there something to Heaney being home versus on the road? Seems a better pitcher at home, fingers crossed. Okay, so let's dig into this because we can actually look this up. The way that I would look at this, Dave, is look at each pitcher's strikeout rate at home versus on the road, because that's going to be a number that stabilizes pretty quickly. And if you're trying to decide which pitchers do better at home versus on the road, and you want to look at smaller samples, that's going to be a key indicator for you to lean on. So let's go over here to Heaney's FanGraphs page, click on the splits, and let's go back to 2019 to give ourselves a larger sample here on Andrew Heaney. The 2018 numbers aren't going to, or 2020 numbers aren't going to tell us all that much. Okay, so you see here, the ERA for Heaney was higher at home than it was on the road. He allowed a much higher weighted on base average at home versus on the road. Scroll down to strikeout rate. His strikeout rate 28% at home versus 30% on the road. The walk rate relatively even. So if you look back to last year, Andrew Heaney technically had better performances on the road than he did at home. However, I would not take that to mean you should avoid Andrew Heaney at home because, again, we're dealing with small samples here. The Angels Stadium is not one that is super prohibitive for pitchers being really good. So I don't think it's a situation where it's the park factor. It could have just been that he had really bad luck. Again, you look at this year's numbers and you see that Heaney's been better at home than on the road. So we can see him do well here. That 10th strikeout game for him against Seattle is at home, but that's also influenced by Seattle being a lesser offense for sure. He's faced the Dodgers at home, kind of okay results there. The Mariners again there. So that's probably why Heaney's numbers are so much better against or at home this year, is because he's faced the Mariners twice. But I do think overall, I wouldn't give Heaney a bump up at home versus on the road, but I also would not let the 2019 numbers tell you that you need to lower Heaney at home just because his numbers weren't as good. So I think that in general, like, we should prefer pitches at home because we talked about this, I think it was last week. We looked at let's go back here again, check out the numbers and see if they change. What we can do over on FanGraphs is we can look at what starting pitchers have done at home versus on the road, because obviously this year is a little bit different given that there are no home fans. When we look at starting pitchers overall this year, they have a 22.5% strikeout rate, and we change that to be just at home. The strikeout rate is 23.6%. When we look at it just on the road, it falls down to 22.8%. So it's about a 1 percentage point difference for starting pitchers at home versus on the road so far this year, based on the numbers over at FanGraphs. So I think in general, you do want to give pitchers a preference at home, but I think with Andrew Heaney specifically, we don't need to go too drastically in one direction or another. Periscope from Austin. Nola from the Padres, yes or no? So again, I'm not super into the Padres here because they're facing Andrew Heaney. Austin Nola is also not some really impressive power option from a hitting perspective. So he was really good with the Mariners earlier on. So like there's a reason the Padres decided to acquire him, but he's also not like this huge power guy. I also think his salary is not super low either, if I recall. I think he's like $2,800. Yeah, $2,800 for Austin Nola. So if I were looking to stack the Padres, Nola is likely someone I would be including in that stack. But because the Padres are lower on my list and Nola is not some outstanding player, I guess his numbers are pretty good against lefties. 267 isolated slugging percentage for his career, 49% hard hit rates, 46% fly ball rate. So he can hit lefties, but that potentially is part of the reason the Padres acquired him. They also got Jason Castro, so a nice little platoon situation there. But I think because I am lower on the Padres offense as a whole, I am okay being lower on Austin Nola as well. Constantine, late to the party, what are your favorite stacks for today? Not many. Yeah, I agree. There aren't a whole lot of stacks. I think that's why I'm kind of leaning towards viewing this as being a really good single entry slate, because there aren't a lot of stacks that I do enjoy. But let's go over here, take a look at some stacks. I think the Blue Jays are kind of the no-brainer stack of the day, which means they're going to be very popular. So if you're trying to avoid the chalk here, you're probably going to want to avoid the Blue Jays. I still think that they're worth it. Honestly, it doesn't bother me too much. I would just try to find other ways to get exposure to the Blue Jays while still stacking them. But I think they're still worth it. And they're sometimes chalk is chalk for a reason. I also like the Royals for today. They're facing Dylan Cease, and Cease has he's a really fun pitcher to watch because he throws hard. He's got this good slider, but for whatever reason, he hasn't gotten good peripherals so far this year. This is his past 4 starts when he's been throwing his slider more often, which is good because it's a good slider, but still a 5.61 skill interactive ERA, 19% strikeout rate, 13% walk rate. And when you look at this Royals lineup, there's some value here. If you want to get to Clayton Kershaw, the Royals can help you get there. Ryan O'Hearn. There's no Jorge Soler, which is sad. I'm kind of sad about that, but O'Hearn, Franco, I'd rather not go to Alex Gordon, but Olivares is a guy who can get stolen bases, had some power in the minors last year for the Padres. So I would say if you're trying to help yourself get to Kershaw, I would turn towards the Royals. Now that's, Constantine, my view here, because I am someone who is going to use Kershaw, so I'm trying to scramble for value to get them with the Blue Jays. If you are not going Kershaw and don't need those salary savings, I do think the White Sox are a pretty good option. They're facing Danny Duffy, and Duffy's gotten a lot of strikeouts so far this year, but he's also, I know that the hard hit rate is low for Duffy so far, but he has let up some hard contact. Like if you look at his barrel percentage is really high. So I think the White Sox, given how good they've been against lefties, would still be a good stack for today too. Luke Weaver's peripherals are good, but his results have been really bad. So I'd be okay with the Dodgers too. So if you're looking for value, I say the Royals. Straight up, it's the Blue Jays. For value, Royals. And if you have the salary, I think the White Sox and the Dodgers are 2 really good options. Jeremy, please help fight to make DFS legal in Hawaii. Hello to Hawaii. Okay. I am pretty powerless, Jeremy. So I unfortunately can't help there, but let's go Hawaii. Let's get this done. Austin, question. I'm thinking of trying head-to-head a bit more than tournaments. I usually stack for tournaments, but how do I change for head-to-heads? Thanks as always. I still stack in cash games. So when I say cash games, I mean either head-to-heads or double-ups or 50-50s. I still stack there because basically what I'm trying to do is lower my exposure to batters who are facing good pitchers. And the more you spread yourself out and the less you stack in a cash game, the more pitchers you are exposing yourself to. So like, let's say I decide to play cash games. I want to go Clayton Kershaw. And you want to spread things out. So you're saying that you don't want to have more than 2 You're not saying you're saying that's awesome. I'm just saying this hypothetically. This is me saying this. This is me saying a hypothetical here. In the situation, let's say you want to cap it at 2 players per team. So you're going, okay, I will use players in the Royals, 2 players in the Royals, 2 from the Blue Jays, and then you go 2 from the White Sox and 2 from the Dodgers. You are exposing yourself to Luke Weaver, Danny Duffy, Dylan Cease, and Martin Perez, instead of exposing yourself to just Martin Perez and Dylan Cease. I would rather have exposure to the 2 worst pitchers on the slate than the 4 worst pitchers on the slate because you incrementally get better. And there's also just advantages to stacking. You can double dip. You are allowing yourself to have advantages whenever one of your batters gets on base and extends the volume for that team. So I would still stack in cash games. There are differences in cash games at pitcher where I think that you can care more about, like I put more weight in matchups. I am pretty laissez-faire when it comes to matchups and tournaments. I will target a pitcher facing a really good team if I think that person gets strikeouts for cash games. I'm okay avoiding that. So I think that is a major change. Also, I think it does influence which teams you stack when it comes to a cash game versus a tournament. In a tournament, I am basically selling out for hard contact. I want to get as much hard contact on my team as I can possibly gather. For a cash game, I want a lot of balls in play. And that's true for tournaments too. But targeting lower strikeout pitchers is a big key for me in cash games. So, Austin, I think that as you transition to do more cash games, more head-to-heads, more 50-50s, you should still stack. It would just change the way you are looking at specific teams. You know, trying to get as many balls in play as you can, trying to target low strikeout pitchers, and gunning for safety at your pitcher rather than upside. Those are the main tweaks I'd make, but I would still stack. Question from Periscope from Spence. Sorry, I just got here. Do you like Taijuan Walker, or who is your top pitcher? I'm not really into Taijuan Walker. The strikeout rate has been pretty underwhelming so far this year, 21% for him. That ranks third to last on this slate based on each pitcher's most relevant sample, as deemed by me. So pretty low. The matchup is good against the Red Sox, a 26% strikeout rate. They've gotten worse because Mitch Moreland is playing pretty well, so actually trading him away does impact the way that I view them. So It's a better matchup, but Walker himself, he's been going deep into games. Like his pitch count, I think was 106 2 starts ago. He threw more sliders in his first start with the Blue Jays, so maybe he could be higher on our list eventually. But for right now, I'm not super high on Taijuan Walker. For me, it's Clayton Kershaw and then everybody else. I think Kershaw is just like a phenomenal play for DFS. Checks literally every box. He gets strikeouts, has a floor, has upside. So to me, no brainer that Clayton Kershaw is the number one pitcher for me tonight. Outside, like the number two pitcher, maybe you go Mike Clevenger, hoping that his numbers get better from where they've been so far this year. Maybe you go Andrew. I like Andrew Heaney personally for tournaments. I would not touch Andrew Heaney in cash games. Very, very risky. But for tournaments, it's within his range of outcomes to be the highest scoring pitcher on the slate. So that's why I could go with Andrew Heaney there. Just do not consider touching Andrew Heaney in a cash game. To me, it's all about Clayton Kershaw there. And I think everyone else is multiple tiers below him. Question on Periscope from Austin. Playing any Duffy today against the White Sox for some leverage in single entries? Probably not. Just because, again, in single entry, like I think that you can get leverage by stacking against or, by going counter to what other people are doing. But I think for me in single entry, I'm going to play things pretty straight up and go Clayton Kershaw because Kershaw is head and shoulders above everyone else. Now, if you wanted to make a case for Danny Duffy, you could look at that strikeout rate. It's 28% so far this year, 3.81 skill interactive ERA. The reason that Duffy does not tempt me despite that is that, as you saw in that sheet, the White Sox have absolutely been disgusting against left-handed pitching so far this year. A 160 WRC plus, and part of the reason their WRC plus is good is because they just faced Danny Duffy in his most recent start. In that one, he went 5 2/3 innings, 3 earned runs, 2 dingers, 6 strikeouts. So I can see the thought process there, Austin, and it does make sense in general to try to change things up. But for me in single entry, I'm going to use Clayton Kershaw, and I will let everyone else not use Kershaw. Like, he should be the chalk. He will be the chalk. But, like, I want people to prove that they can beat a Kershaw lineup. And, like, if Kershaw is on 35% of rosters tonight, that means that he's not on 65%. So I think that's the way I'm doing things for there. Billy is asking, if we do go Kershaw, who are some decent value plays in second base, shortstop, and third base spots? Okay, so let's go over here and try to find within our stacks. The stacks that I like, again, are the Blue Jays and the Royals. The Blue Jays lineup, let's see here. Lourdes Gurriel is an outfielder, so I know you're not asking about outfielders, but that's probably where I would go there. You're not going to get much value from those spots out of the Blue Jays. Is Jonathan VR in their lineup? Yeah, he's batting 6th, so he's $3,000. You could potentially consider him as being a value play, I guess. I would probably try to aim a little bit lower for you because I don't want to tell you to use a super high salary dude as your value play. Let's check out the Royals here instead. Okay, we have Maikel Franco. He is $2,700. He is a third baseman. Checks a couple of boxes for you there. I do not want Nicky Lopez because the path to upside there is pretty tough to visualize. So I'm not super tempted by that, despite the fact that his salary is super low. But let's check out the Royals here and see what we can get out of Maikel Franco. Franco against righties, 37% hard hit rate. The league average hard hit rate this year is 42%, so below average hard hit rate, but it's not terrible. 42% fly ball rate, 18% strikeout rate, not the worst results. So I would say that Maikel Franco is actually a place you can go for some value. I would not turn to Nicky Lopez. That's not super tempting for me. Let's actually pull up here second base, third base, and shortstop. Let's scroll down. Ketel Marte is facing Kershaw. No, we don't want that. Don't want that. Don't want that. Second base is pretty tough. Second base is always pretty tough, so that's not a surprise. Maybe you do go Lopez. Again, I'm really trying to avoid that, if at all possible, but second base is just kind of a bad position across the board for tonight. Let's check out third base here. Outside of Franco, let's see if there's anyone else we could potentially tolerate here. I don't think Travis Shaw is in the lineup. He's facing a lefty. So, yeah, no Travis Shaw for tonight. Can't go there. Bobby Dahlbeck, not that interesting to me. Third base is also pretty tough. So it's probably Maikel Franco there from a value perspective. Adalberto Mondesi has had a really bad year. It seems like he's still not at full health, and they finally gave him a day off a couple of days ago. So maybe we'll see things slowly start to turn around for Mondesi. Let's pull up his player page here and see what he's done. So in the one game back, didn't do anything there, over 3. So I kind of think it's tough. It's tough to find some value there. I think, Billy, I would try to focus your value in the outfield because, again, I do like Ryan O'Hearn there. I guess he's for first base, but Ryan O'Hearn at first base, good value play. Maikel Franco at third base could be a value. Lourdes Gurriel in the outfield could be a good value. Edward Olivares in the outfield, minimum salary. So I would say the value plays are outside of those positions personally. Sarugi, are you on Walker for Arizona? He had 4 hours, if I'm correct, against Kershaw. Oh, okay. So are you on Walker? Oh, so this is Christian Walker against Clayton Kershaw. No. Definitely not. So batter versus pitcher numbers are always going to be reliant on small samples. And if you pull up Christian Walker's numbers against Clayton Kershaw, I'm guessing most of them came last year. I know that I'm pretty sure Kershaw has faced the Diamondbacks already this year, but one of his home runs has probably come this year, but we're dealing with super small samples. Clayton Kershaw on the whole has been really good this year. So I'm not really looking to target anybody facing him. In fact, I'm targeting batters or targeting him specifically. His numbers against righties, I would assume the strikeout rate for Kershaw has still been very high this year. It's 28.4%. So I would always proceed with caution when it comes to batter versus pitcher numbers for anyone. Christian Walker against Clayton Kershaw is going to be pretty recent, so that's definitely good. But I think even that scenario, because Kershaw's been so good this year, the velocity has been so high. And like I said, I'm guessing one of those home runs, at least for Christian Walker, has come this year against Kershaw. But even despite that, I'm going to put the faith in the overall numbers, and the overall numbers say we want to use Clayton Kershaw as our pitcher and avoid hitters who are facing. I just want more balls in play. Corey is asking, who is a must-play from the low-salary players? So, again, I think that it's I think Edward Olivares just came over to the Royals via trade. So he's a new guy to the team. This might be his first start with the Royals, I think, but he's minimum salary. That's always intriguing. $2,000, batting sixth for a team that I wouldn't mind stacking. And look at this, 35 stolen bases last year in the minors for Olivares, 18 home runs. This is in Double-A, so you have to, take this with a grain of salt. The fly ball rate was not as high as you would hope, 34% last year, but minimum salary, 2 paths to upside via both the power and the stolen bases. He's batting sixth, so I would say Olivares makes it a whole lot easier. He's the main guy to focus on, but then O'Hearn, Lourdes Gurriel, those are the guys I would turn to there. Wayne, would you start Clevenger in a tournament format? Yes, I would consider Clevenger for sure. His numbers this year have not been very good, but it's also a pretty small sample because he missed all that time because he was a dummy and went out during a literal pandemic. So the numbers on Clevenger, small sample-y, which means we don't need to worry too much about the strikeout rate, and we see the swinging strike rate, once it pulls up, is still 12.5%. So it's not as if he's been lost. His results have still been good. So I would say you can go to Clevenger in tournaments for tonight. That is very okay. I just happen to prefer both Kershaw and Heaney over Clevenger, but it's very defensible to go with my Clevenger for tonight. And I think that is A-okay to me. Joe Buck. Hello, Joe. Kershaw for cash. Any other considerations just got here? I'm guessing you're not the Joe Buck, but either way, hello to you, because you are also special, Joe. Yes, Kershaw in cash, no doubt about it. No thought consideration anywhere else for me. It is Clayton Kershaw from a cash game perspective for tonight. It does force you to get a little bit creative with your hitters, but I'm on the Royals here. I know it can be risky because we are talking about going up against Dylan Cease, who can be really good, but with the value that they give you, I would say that it makes it pretty worthwhile. Let's go with Franco. Let's go with O'Hearn, and let's go with Olivares. I could just search for him, but that would make things way too easy. Okay, there he is. And wait for it to click. Once we put in those three guys to be the main three value plays for me on this Royals team, $3,400 left per batter, we can make that happen. So Clayton Kershaw, no doubt about it, is the guy in cash games for tonight. And he will be the guy for me in tournaments as well. That is all the time that we have for today. Want to, as always, thank you all for tuning in here to the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A. Good luck with your DFS lineups for tonight. We are back again tomorrow with a solo shot at 9 a.m. and this Q&A on Friday to close out your week. A schedule warning for next week. We will not have a show on Monday because of Labor Day. Back with you next Tuesday to get you set for that one, though. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, from the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck tonight. We'll talk to you again tomorrow on a Friday. This has been the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A.